Hello and welcome to another Rackspace Office Hours Hangout. My name is Alan Bush and we are broadcasting live from the castle, Rackspace's headquarters here in San Antonio, Texas. We've got a really fun show set up for today. I'm really excited about this one. Let's go ahead and introduce our co-host, Drew Cox. How you doing today, Drew?
I'm doing pretty well, suffering from a little bit of allergies, but nothing I can't survive.
Yeah, that's good. There's definitely something going around. Definitely. So we've got Drew with us today, and then we've got two guests and another one that's on the way. We're trying to get him set up here, but let's go ahead and introduce these guests here. We've got members of one of our employee resource groups called RackVET, and it's a group of veterans, military veterans that are working here at Rackspace. I want to go ahead and start off with Matt Graham. Matt actually came up to me and had this idea of doing this broadcast. So thank you, Matt, for bringing this idea to us, and thank you for joining us today. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. I'm doing good. I'm glad to be here. This has been a long time coming, so I'm glad to see it happening.
Yeah, absolutely. We're really glad that you were able to join us, and this has been yeah, like you said, it's a long time coming, and it's going to be a really interesting conversation. So glad to have you here. We also have James Green. James, how are you?
I'm doing great, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, definitely glad to have you on. James, you also work with Matt on the on RackVET as well, and you're a racker here in security, right?
Correct. Yeah, I've been involved with RackVET for about 3 years now, and I work in network security on the international side of the business.
Great. And Matt, you let's see, you said 6 years, I think, is you've been a 6-year worker?
That is. I'm a 6-year racker. I currently work for the Critical Application Services team. I maintain the infrastructure that houses our application monitoring and reporting systems that our application support engineers use to support our customers.
Yeah, that's huge. I mean, that's a very critical, as the name says, application there. So we're really glad that about that work that you do there. Well, great. It's great to have you both on. We're going to go ahead and jump into the conversation here in just a minute. I mentioned before we've got another member that we're trying to get online, trying to work through some technical difficulties, but the show must go on, they say. So we're going to go ahead and jump into our conversation here. So Matt, why don't you tell us just a little bit about RackVET itself and what that is. And actually, before we jump in and do that, I do want to mention that anybody that's watching live, you can join in the conversation in a couple of different ways. If you want to tweet at us, you can use the hashtag CloudQA, and we'll get that. We also have a comment directly on the YouTube channel there, and we'll get that as well. So if you're watching, definitely give us a comment that way, and we can ask this panel that we have any of those questions that we need to. But sorry for that, Matt. Let's go ahead and turn it back over to you to tell us a little bit about RackVET.
No problem. So RackVET is one of our many employee resource groups at Rackspace that just happens to be geared towards military veterans. Our primary purpose is pretty much to just bring awareness to the veteran community and do some community outreach to help veterans trying to transition through from military service into civilian life, and to help rackers that are also veterans, further their career, whether it be some mentorship or things like that. We also do some community outreach where we help out through some facilities throughout town, and we bring in some externs from the Wounded Warrior Project to come and run through a little program here. So that we got our hands in a bunch of different fires here, but it's really a lot of fun and it's real fulfilling. So.
Well, thank you for all the work that you're a part of and you get to help to further. It looks like we were able to be joined by John, and the technical difficulties got sorted out. So welcome, John. Why don't you give us a quick overview on your time as a racker and your involvement with RackVET?
Sure, absolutely. Sorry about the delay in getting in.
Not a worry.
Tyler just had to come stand next to me, and it all worked. So thanks for having me as part of the Hangout today. I'm a 8-year racker. I've done a bunch of interesting stuff here at Rackspace. I ran our recruiting team for a while. I've spent most of my time in support from March of '89 till May of 1998. I was in the Air Force Reserve here in San Antonio. I was a C5 loadmaster the whole time. So put on active duty for Desert Storm back in the early 90s. It was very exciting and really interesting work, lots of fun. And, being at Rackspace has been just a great opportunity, a lot of great vets here, and a lot of folks working to support our customers, and it's great to see the diversity that veterans and everybody else brings to the table here at Rackspace.
Absolutely, and we're thankful for your service, not only as Rackers serving our customers, but your service to us as Americans and the hard work that you've done. All three of you and the many other Rackers who have years of military service under their belts. That's huge for us as individuals, but a lot of the training and a lot of the work that you've done shaped you into people who can help our customers, and we have a real service-oriented organization here at Rackspace, and so it seems like a natural outcropping of the bent and the makeup of the people who are joining the Rack from all different walks of life. That it just makes a lot of sense that here, being based in Military USA, we have so many veterans that have come in and really enhance the Rackspace brand, model, approach, etc., to really make a huge difference in our town and in our environment, ecosystem, in the technology space. And it seems to continue on and on, but there's a lot of dovetailing there that really comes together naturally. Very cool.
Let's talk about that dovetailing. I'm kind of curious about that. So, John, you mentioned a little bit about your actual military service. We don't own any C5s here at Rackspace, so I'm guessing that there wasn't a direct correlation. Maybe Matt and James, tell us a little bit about your experience in the military, some of the roles that you had there.
Cool. Well, I'll jump in. So I was a Russian linguist professionally in the Army, pretty much my entire time, and I guess I still continue to serve as a Russian linguist because I'm in the National Guard for another couple of years. But you would think that doesn't really matter either. We don't really have too many Russian customers, but I was in the intelligence community, so I kind of transitioned from pure linguistics into cyber stuff, working over here at NSA Texas on the west side, and that just kind of dovetailed into an interest in IT and networking and security specifically. So when I started looking around, looking for post-service opportunities, this job just seemed like a natural fit. It was networking, it was security, it was on the international side. Being a linguist gave me an acute awareness of cultural differences and how to work with other cultures. And I just fell into it, I guess, just right time, right place, and been very happy here ever since.
Fortunate for everyone, and that's a fantastic opportunity that you were able to just move right into.
How about you, Matt?
Yeah.
So I joined the Army at age 19 back in 1997. Following my basic training in my IT tech school, I was assigned to the 101st Airborne Division at Fort Campbell, Kentucky, where I spent all 4 years in the 501st Signal Battalion, which has since been disbanded because of reorganizations in the Army. But I worked in the electronic maintenance section, where faulty communications equipment was brought in for repair and decommission. And I like to joke about how I told my recruiter I wanted to work with computers and technology, and subsequently was placed into a data entry job. So my role in the maintenance shop was called production control, and basically I was in charge of work order processing, equipment intake, repair parts ordering, distribution, inventory, pretty much anything that they needed to run the maintenance shop. And on any given day, it was likely that I was signed for hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of communications equipment, some of it super top secret and classified, some of it not. And during this time, I'm sure you remember that the world was still very, very analog. There wasn't a whole lot of information moving, digitally. So handwritten work orders had to be manually entered into Windows NT DOS-based systems, and parts requisitions were transmitted over 56K modems, if not hand-delivered. So you can imagine it required a great deal of organization and attention to detail to keep up with a lot of that. there was not a whole lot of spell checkers or input validation back then, you know. And while the times have certainly changed and the availability of the tools to help us stay organized and automated are now a part of everyday life, I like to think that the detail-oriented and purposeful action lifestyle I learned in the Army still plays a very big role in all aspects of my life and how I approach work at Rackspace. Additionally, you know, there's a thing. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say that's definitely one of the things that I've heard from every service member that I've talked to across the board is that detail-oriented, you know, service-oriented lifestyle has benefited them, of course, during their time in the service and then outside of it. So that's something that definitely rings true. But I mean, it's interesting to see how even though you were working in what we would now pretty much consider the dark ages of networking, you're able to build something. So that's great. That's great. Yeah, good stuff. James, how about you? Have you used? I don't know if you said it or not. Have you used your language skills with any customers? I know you mentioned that it helped you with the cultural sensitivities, but has there ever been a time when someone says, "Hey, we got this customer on the phone and is speaking Russian. Does anybody know Russian?" Has that ever come up for us?
I do think we've had like 3 different emails go out. There's actually a variety of us here that either came from the linguistic community over at NSA Texas or are just native speakers. So I haven't had to jump on one of those calls yet, but it is on my skills tracker, and I highly advise that everybody do that. So always available. Surprisingly, we don't have that many Russian customers in the international side of the business. Most of our Russian customers are actually supported from the U.S. side of the business.
Yeah, I've definitely been on the sending end of, can someone please help me translate this language that I'm assuming is something related to Greek to me. So that's been a huge help in having a broad base of really talented rackers who can, you know, handle a variety of things that aren't necessarily straight down the line IT has made our jobs possible. So I think I ended up with a Portuguese speaker, and I think I ended up with something else that's Eastern Bloc that was adjacent to Russian. But thank you for your skill set and the fact that it makes our customers' lives a lot easier when they can call in and have a much higher likelihood of getting the answers they need to the problems that they run into. So we've got diverse backgrounds here that the 3 of you have shared, and as we, you know, kind of go down the list of the other rackers that we deal with on a day-to-day basis, a lot of diverse backgrounds and skill sets that, though apply to their current job, go beyond that. And Matt, you were talking about the other work that RackVET does to help with vets that are transitioning. Could you talk a little bit about some of the things that that we're doing specifically to help the veterans here in the San Antonio area and beyond?
So I think the biggest project that we're involved in is our partnership with the Wounded Warrior Project. We've had, I think, 4 cohorts of internships come through where we've run them through, you know, some mock interviews and we've done some, you know, resume building workshops and really did some coaching and mentoring on them and helping them, you know, translate their military service into, you know, a job that they could attain at Rackspace or at some other business throughout the community. I'd say that that's probably the biggest part that we've had in that. There might be some one-on-one mentorships that are happening between some of our community members and new rackers, and I think James might be able to speak a little bit more to some work that he's done with TAP, which is the Transition Assistance Program. I know that he's had some involvement there.
Sure, thanks, Matt. Yeah, we are somewhat embedded in the Transition Assistance Program over here, what used to be called the Army Career Alumni Program. That's just to help those veterans that are, well, service members that are transitioning out of service, learn how to build resumes and civilianize their resumes and how to conduct an interview and how to dress and all that stuff that you kind of forget about when you're in uniform, because we don't usually interview for roles. You just kind of get stuck in the role that you're assigned to. So we started to get embedded with them because they used to have an employer panel every week at each of the bases here in San Antonio, and they rotate around. And then they got rid of the employer panel. So we kind of dropped out of that. What they're doing now, though, is allowing employers to come in and kind of set up booths at lunch and just talk through experiences, skill sets, that sort of thing. Some of my rackers on my team, that one of them actually used to be one of my soldiers in the Army. I hired him when he got out just because he was an exceptional security engineer, knows the network backwards and forward. He's very passionate about that. So he's been going over during those lunch breaks, usually once or twice a month, and setting up a little tiny Rackspace booth representing us, but really just talking to these service members about how to move into the tech community if they're not already, and how to come to Rackspace specifically if they're interested, and hopefully helping them find a great role.
And are there some specific highlights that really play out best in transitioning that resume from one where you're being, assigned to your next role and moving into more of a looking for a specific job? Are there some kind of low-hanging fruit that any veteran should be considering when it comes to translating what they see as commonplace in day-to-day in their current role as a service member that is really a hugely valuable thing when it comes to moving into a civilian role?
For me, the quick wins are the teamwork and the just the dedication that we have to duty and to getting the job done. Those are things that almost any vet can articulate on their resume. But a shortcut that I wish more people would use, but don't, is go through all those evaluations. Every service does evaluations every year, every 6 months, or quarterly, or whatever interval. And they also give awards. And when the veteran or the service member gets those evaluations and they get handed a copy of the award write-up, copy and paste that stuff into a resume, and then take it and get rid of the acronyms, make it sound civilian. But veterans and rackers in general, but veterans are horrible about, oh yeah, I did that. They're much more willing to say, oh no, I was a member of a team, we all did great work together, or it was just my job. No, go in and look at what somebody else is saying about you and include that.
Yeah, I think there's a general sense, even at Rackspace, of team and working together to accomplish a goal. And I think there's a lot of probably influenced from a lot of the service members that we have as rackers, but I, on a day-to-day basis of, I work with a group who does this thing and has achieved this specific benchmark goal, wonderful outcome, and no one really wants to take the full, I achieved this thing, yay, good success story. We love success stories here. That's one thing that I see as a common thread among all rackers, is we love seeing our customers succeed. We love seeing products succeed, and a success story is fantastic, but there's rarely a sense of, like, look at the impact that I had on this thing. It's a we conversation. So that's a really good reminder for probably anybody in any audience, but I think rackers and vets very specifically could see value in taking advantage of that.
And I think that what you find when you work with military members, and especially obviously if you were in the service, right, is that being in the military, your job's not about you, right? Your job is about, just like James was saying, it's about your unit, it's about your base, right? It's about the people that you're working with, keeping the guy to your right and your left safe, whatever your job is in the military. Typically the focus is not about you as an individual, and so that's the cool thing that military members bring to Rackspace, right? We're all oriented around serving our customers and making our customers successful. When our customers are successful, we all get to share in that success. But you'll find that most military members are going to be very humble when it comes to talking about their piece of making that success happen. And so, when you interview a military member, you sometimes have to really dig in and tease that information out, and talk to them about what their part in the success of whatever role they had in the military. What was your part in it? Why was it better because you did it? And once you can kind of get them on that path, they'll talk about it, but they typically won't come in to an interview situation volunteering that information. They're typically going to come in and say, I was in a unit that was responsible for XYZ. These are the things that we did, right? And it's very much kind of a we mentality. And that's some of the good coaching that we give guys, is that, you've got to be able to shift gears a little bit and talk about your specific role in it. And again, why was it better? Because you did it, right? What were the things that you brought to it that made it great?
I kind of want to piggyback on that real quick, John. A lot of guys don't think about it. There's a thing in the military, and it might be something that's prevalent out there in the civilian world. It's called esprit de corps, and it basically boils down to a feeling of pride or fellowship or a common loyalty shared by the members of a particular group. And that's that same mutual pride that drives the culture here at Rackspace. I mean, you can see it when you walk around the building and you see all the individual flags hanging up and how people have decorated their desks to make it be their own. It's a culture that says we're all on the same team, all driving for the same goal. We know it's not going to be all fun and games all the time, and that it may downright suck at sometimes, but we know that we're all in it together, and we're going to celebrate the victory together in the end. And
Right.
I'm going to poke fun at my friend James here real quick. It's also a culture where I can reach across the table there and I can poke a little fun at him and talk to him about how the 101st Airborne is the superior airborne unit above all others.
I wouldn't say that there's ever any jabs in the general Rackspace world. That never happens. There's no cloud versus dedicated or sales versus support business. No way.
That's right. Hey, James, how did those 101st Airborne guys get around, just out of curiosity?
They certainly don't jump out of airplanes, that's for sure.
That's right.
Fair enough.
Very good. I want to dig into something that John, you mentioned earlier about really focusing on keeping the guy to your right and guy to your left together as a team and really working on that. In what ways do you see that translated to your roles here at Rackspace? How do you take that same lesson and apply that here in your day-to-day role at Rackspace?
Well, I think what we're very fortunate to have here at Rackspace is a very unique culture where everybody wants to volunteer their best to help our customers be successful, right? So we have lots of small teams working together to deliver great customer outcomes, and somehow or another, we have figured out how to build this great culture within our teams where everybody wants to help the guy next to them or the girl next to them be successful in their role. So you'll have technical people working with business people, and if a business person has a technical question and they need to grab somebody to answer something that's very complex, and our technical folks are so super happy to jump on the call at a moment's notice, answer the question, do whatever they need to do to make sure that we get the customer's needs taken care of. And again, there's very little I and me in those conversations, right? It's about we as a team doing what we need to do to make our customers happy and successful.
Yeah, I definitely have to agree with that. Sorry, I definitely have to agree with that. I think one of the values that we really bring, that's actually redundant, one of the things that the veterans bring to Rackspace, or that not even veterans bring, but what Rackspace and the service have so in common is our adherence to this set of core values, which kind of define how we treat each other, how dedicated we are to our roles or our jobs or our company or our team or whatever. And that's something that's a common thread that we share, and I think that's why veterans have been both successful in coming into Rackspace and successful once they're here. A lot of companies don't have that, and I think we're really fortunate to have a company that doesn't just post their core values up on the wall, but they actually live them, and Rackers own them and make sure that it's maintained as the standard.
Yeah, there's another very cool dynamic that takes place here at Rackspace that I felt was very similar to my experience in the military. And I know that James sees it on his team of network security administrators. James will see it on his team of engineers. And that's when you get a new guy that joins your team, new guy, new girl. The very cool thing is everybody on the team will help that person get up to speed as fast as they possibly can, right? There's nobody hoarding information or trying to make that person feel like they're the new guy and you've just got to learn everything the hard way, the way that I did, right? Everybody really wants to, one, know all the things that that person knows, right? What's all the cool stuff this new guy or new girl knows that's going to make me a better racker and better able to support our customers? And then what are the things that I can do to help that person get up to speed so they can quickly begin supporting the mission of supporting our customers here at Rackspace? And that's very similar to my experience in the military, is that, the guys and girls in my unit, when I was brand new, everybody wants to help you, right? And everybody's showing you what they know and showing you how they've learned it, because eventually they're going to depend on you to do your job, which is going to also make them successful, right? And my job on the airplane, right? Everyone depends on you to do your job and to do it very well. And the consequences of not doing your job well could be very serious. And so they wanted to make sure that everybody knew what they were doing and knew how to do it to the best of their ability. And I see that same thing happening here at Rackspace. And in just about every role that I've been in, everybody wants to make everybody around them better. And I just think that's one of the coolest things about Rackspace, is that there's no information hoarding, right? Like if I share something with you, now you know everything I know, so what value do I have anymore, right? That kind of stuff just doesn't happen here. Everybody wants to share and learn.
Well, learning is definitely one of the themes at Rackspace here. I mean, almost everybody wants to learn as much as they can, and I love hearing about just taking people under your wing, getting them up and running. That's some great stuff. Really, really appreciate that.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me. So one question that I had kind of wanted to know is, and I'd like to hear from each of you on this one. What's one thing that you wish you would have known as you were, transitioning from military to this civilian life? What's one thing that you would have wished you would have known as you got ready to make that change?
So for me, I got out in 2001, and it was 3 months to the day before 9/11. So I participated in the Army Career and Alumni Program, the ACAP that James was talking about before. And it was, I think it was one day, and I think we were all more interested in checking off a box than we were, in helping ourselves and preparing ourselves. We were all just trying to clear the base because we were getting free, getting ready to go home. I wish I had done a little bit more research and did some more walking and asked some more questions and invested in myself a little bit more, because back then they weren't throwing the information in your face. Here, you're transitioning, here's this, you need to know this, you need to know this. You had to actually go and look for it. And even though I was standing in line at the Workforce Commission, there wasn't a whole lot of in-your-face information, and I just didn't take the opportunity to seek it out myself, and I wish that I had done that.
Thanks, Pat. John or James, do you have anything to add to that?
My role, I was a reservist the whole time, so I was in the civilian world at the same time I was in the military world, so there probably wasn't a lot of transition. It probably wasn't as stark of a transition as it was for Matt and for James, coming out of a complete military environment and having a transition into a civilian environment. What do you think, James?
Well, James, you're still in. You're in the reserve still, right? So you're kind of on that other side too.
I was really lucky transitioning. I'd been in forever, so I'd already watched a lot of my peers make the mistakes. But my dad had also served for 20 years. He got out just shortly after I left for college. Actually, that's not true. Just shortly after I joined the Army myself. And I'd already seen what he went through and how he didn't struggle, but what the process looked like for him, as well as for some of my peers that got out before I did. So I knew that I needed to finish my degree. I needed to have some relevant certifications for what I wanted to do. I needed to articulate exactly what's going on with my resume. But the hardest transition for me wasn't doing that. It wasn't leadership at Rackspace looks very similar to what leadership in the military looks like, especially the Army. So stepping into a leadership role here wasn't much of a change for me. What was a change was how to deal with peers and people outside of my direct sphere of influence. In the military, the rank that you wear on your collar, on your chest, or on your sleeve, depending what service you're in, kind of, it forces respect, and it forces a level of, hey, I outrank you, even though I'm not in your chain of command, get this done because I outrank you and I asked you to. Whereas here especially, a lot of the getting things done is based on relationships and sphere of influence. And coming in as a new leader, that was definitely a challenge because I didn't have those long-term relationships, and I couldn't fall back on that guy that I went through Rookie O with 3 years ago to say, hey, can you help me out with this? But that was probably the biggest thing for me. But for most, it's getting that resume right, getting and articulating your skill set from what I've seen, and getting the degree. They pay for it. Go to school if you're still in.
So that conversation brought something to mind for me. So a lot of the things we've talked about is right around that transitional phase. So, taking the assessments and doing the check the box. I've been through the day-long course on planning, and you just mentioned getting your degree while you're still in. Are there any other things that while you're still a service member proper in that role that you should be taking advantage of or should look to take advantage of for any of our service members now that maybe you guys missed or really got a lot of value out of that has paid massive dividends now that you're just doing civilian things and helping out from a standpoint now?
I think that one of the things that I don't know how much military members may underestimate how challenging it's going to be to get a civilian job, depending on what their skills and background and experience are, right? So I would say that while you are still in and you've kind of started your job search, formally or informally, you should look and see if any of the organizations you're interested in joining have a veterans group. And if they do, you should try to reach out and somehow engage with that veterans group and the members of it to start building a little bit of a network, and that's also going to help you in your job search. If you can make some connections within the company through the veterans organization, that's going to give you a little bit of a leg up in figuring out really what's happening within that company, understanding the culture better, and hopefully getting a job.
I know on several occasions I've had friends of mine that I serve with that were getting out years after me that have approached me about Rackspace and things like that, and I was able to take their resume and put it out in front of John and James and a few other people to kind of go through it and kind of tailor it to a position here at Rackspace, like a project manager position or a manager or a director job, and it was very beneficial for them. So I don't one guy in particular, I don't think he actually did secure a job, but he did get a job with I think he's now with Intel in Austin or something like that, I think. But so it matters, if you have contacts in the civilian workforce, which you likely do, get in contact with them, give them your resume,
Well, I think that is definitely a valuable skill. I mean, I know I have friends that are making that transition, and they say, well, I've listed out the commands that I've had. He's an officer. He's had several different commands, and okay, well, just saying that doesn't necessarily say all of the things that you did as as an officer, and how do you translate those skills? I mean, what are some of the ways that you would describe that type of daily activity? How would you describe that on a resume?
I think that's one of the things that when we talk to vets and they give us their resume, we immediately, typically, not all the time, but typically we'll see them describe their experience in terms of responsibilities. So they'll say, I was responsible for XYZ, right? And it may be something very big and substantial, right? And I think what a recruiter is going to look for and what a potential hiring manager wants to see from that is also accomplishments, right? So you were responsible for this big set of activities, budgets, people, and over that time period, what were the accomplishments that you were able to generate? What were the results that you were able to generate, right? Were you able to improve productivity, reduce costs, right? How do you manage project excellence? I mean, all kinds of things I'm sure happen over those periods of time. And what we do is we see someone will put their resume together and just say that they were responsible for a set of activities over a period of time. But the real challenge is to take those things and translate them into accomplishments, right? So, and quantifiable accomplishments that somebody could look at and say, wow, I really understand now, your experience in that role and what you contributed to it and the results you were able to generate from it.
Yeah, to that note, that's part of the reason I brought up those evaluations earlier, because they generally, on all 5 services that I was ever involved with, working in a joint environment over at NSA Texas, they list out your daily duties, but they also have that impact and that other stuff, and it's the stuff that no service member, most employees aren't even going to say, oh yeah, I did this, because it just seems second nature to them. Also had a couple of thoughts I completely forgot to that have popped into my mind while John was talking about things that service members can be doing today in order to prepare themselves. They always tell us when we're in, never volunteer for anything. Always just do your job, don't volunteer. A lot of the things that helped me get into Rackspace were things that I volunteered for, things that kind of piqued my interest and I said, oh, you know what? That's what I want to do. I want to go give that a shot. I was able to get my Lean Six Sigma green belt because I volunteered for a Kaizen project at the agency, and because I had an interest in security, I raised my hand one year for ISO, Information System Security Officer, and that's something I got to put on my resume that was directly relevant to the roles that I ended up looking for years later, that otherwise I would have never done. So, if there's stuff out there, if you're still in uniform, if there's stuff out there that you think might interest you someday, go ahead and raise your hand, volunteer, do it. You never know where that might lead.
That's right.
Great advice. Great advice. Yeah, we definitely want to use some of this to share with people that are looking to apply at Rackspace and elsewhere. So this is great information, and I'm glad that you guys are. I think when Drew and I started talking about this, we were looking at people that were right at that cusp of transitioning or had just recently transitioned. So I'm glad that you guys are taking it back even further than that and offering advice during the actual service time. So that's great. Let's see. One other question that I had was more along the lines of, our leadership. John, you had mentioned earlier that our Rackspace leadership is similar to military leadership. Our CEO, Taylor Rhodes, he's a Marine. So, I mean, how does that factor into it when you go all the way to the top and you have military experience? Do you guys notice that anything there that applies?
Well, I can tell you that having somebody with military experience, certainly at the CEO position, gives me tremendous confidence in our future and in our ability to execute, right? And I think that having been in the military, anytime you meet someone else that's in the service, you immediately have a bond and a connection because you have a shared experience, whether you were in the Army, the Air Force, Navy, Marines, Coast Guard, whatever it was. You immediately have a connection because you have shared experiences, backgrounds, values, all those things. So for me, when I see somebody with military experience in a leadership role, you kind of already know what to expect to a certain degree relative to how they're going to lead, their approach, etc. Right? Certainly everybody does it with their own style through their own lens. But for me, it certainly does bring a high level of confidence when I see someone in a leadership position that has a military background.
Specifically around leadership, a lot of what corporate leadership science looks like these days came from military. The whole idea of servant leadership and all of that, that's something the military has been doing for 20 years, or more even, 20 years that I'm aware of. That's just, we as veterans have the opportunity, we start leading right out of the box. You go to basic training or whatever you call it, whatever that service calls it, and you're immediately, day one, given leadership responsibility. You're expected to lead as you promote. You don't get promoted because you're technically competent. You both have to be technically proficient as well as have the ability to lead other technical people doing that role. And it's an expectation. So everybody gets leadership experience. These kids coming out of the military, 22, 24 years old, already have 4 years of leadership experience that people 10, 15 years older than them never even dreamed of. So the leadership by itself is just something the military does very well. Our leadership expectations and style here at Rackspace, they tend to mirror what the military expects, both because of that focus on servant leadership, the focus on values, and instilling very cohesive teams. So that part of it from a tactical frontline leader stuff, it's amazing. But we also get some very structured, strategic, as you go up in the ranks, you get trained on the military decision-making process and a very structured, strategic type of leadership. And that's where we see some very successful senior leaders from John as a director all the way up to Taylor, because they understand how to take those big 2-3 year out objectives and turn them into little tactical bites that we can adjust, that we can attack today.
Good, thank you. So we have recently we've kind of been building up our cybersecurity initiatives here, right? And so we've brought in Brian Kelly as our chief security officer. He's a longtime Air Force guy, I believe, and brought in some others internally to work on cybersecurity internally. So we see a lot of that. Can you guys? I think that James might be able to talk a little bit more about this than others. But what are some of the things that the military is doing that is just really getting people ready for this type of a career in cybersecurity?
So as far as the security stuff goes, just because that's kind of my arena, both in the military and out, there's two different ways we leverage military people, and we have leveraged military experience in our managed security offerings. We have those guys that did security for the service or for the Department of Defense, people like Brian. But then we also have a bunch of people that we've hired that did the exploitation side, which I probably shouldn't talk about. But my resume got cleared before Snowden, so as far as I'm concerned, everything on my resume is good to go. So I'll read off of that. But yeah, we have exploitation teams. We have teams that are out there looking for the bad guys on their networks, and the service members that are doing that work, because most of them are uniformed service members, have a breadth of experience as far as attack vectors and that sort of thing. Just like we use CEHs from the certified ethical hackers from the corporate side. Those guys know where the holes are because they're trained to exploit them and to get in. Who better to close up the holes than people that break into them for a living? I think our managed security offerings and the people specifically we have working over there do a really good job of offering both, or not offering, of utilizing those experiences.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, we can't. I know we can't get too much into that, but yeah, we definitely have parallel tracks of security and research going on at the same time. So that's good to see. Yeah, no, I've really enjoyed seeing the different approaches that are going on right now, and we're definitely making a very large investment into cybersecurity. It's absolutely critical to Rackspace as an organization and to our customers as well. So it's great to see that there is a good career path there coming out of the military. Air Force especially, I know, has done a lot of work there, and it's actually part of the mission statement now, right? To secure online as well, if I'm not mistaken. But
The Air Force is typically the leader in most things.
So how much of that does go on here at Rackspace now that there's a little gentle ribbing I've noticed, but how much of that goes on still at Rackspace? Is there a lot of good-natured ribbing or even more?
Maybe a weekly pickup basketball game that's occasionally heated. I don't know what's going on.
So within RackVET, we actually have a quarterly event called the Battle of the Branches, where we get together and we have small little physical challenges or mental challenges to kind of keep that fire going, because it's a real live thing. It'll probably never go away. It's a lot of fun.
That's right. And every branch has their specialty, right? And so they all are excellent at the things that they do, but there's nothing more fun than giving each other a hard time.
Except for the Coast Guard. We don't pick on those guys too much because they really don't have a defensible position. It's just not fair.
That's right.
Ouch. All right.
So you're saying that next time we put one of these shows together, we need to at least get a representative of the Coast Guard so that we can directly rib them instead of generically rib them.
That's right.
I think there are 3 in all of Rackspace.
We got to find one of them.
I know who they are. We can make that happen.
Great.
Well, good. That's a good question. Do you know which branch is most represented here?
Air Force, I think, is the highest represented one, followed by Army.
That would make a lot of sense, I think. I mean, obviously all the cyber stuff we were just talking about, but I mean, San Antonio is it's a military town, but heavily Air Force. So I think that there's probably
we do have a pretty good sized Navy representation too, and to defend the Navy, since we don't have any swabbies here, actually the Navy sets the standard in cyber stuff. Far and away, they blow away Air Force and Army and everybody else combined. So we do have quite a few Navy folks running around.
Great. Well, that's good news. I know that my friends in the Navy will be appreciative of you sticking up for them, and it'll probably make them rethink some of the things they've said about the Air Force. So, yeah, that's great. Well, hey guys, thank you for joining us today. You guys took an hour out of your days to sit here and talk with us, and I really appreciate it. I think this will be beneficial for some of our people that are looking to get a job here at Rackspace and elsewhere, and just to kind of better understand this. Give you just another second real quick to mention anything else, any other resources or anything like that you think might be applicable to people leaving the military now or soon as they try to transition to that civilian role.
I don't know if I have anything additional, but I'll repeat what I said earlier. Look and see if the organizations that you're interested in have a veterans organization that has, an external entry point, so you can make some contacts and find out more about that company and see if that is company culture and kind of work environment that you're interested in.
Yeah. I can reiterate something as well too. Invest in yourself. There are school opportunities, there's training opportunities, and it's all there, and it's just ready for you to take it and do it. So definitely take those opportunities that are available to you to better yourself professionally, academically, whatever the case may be.
Don't be scared to come to the rack. I was terrified. I didn't think this was going to be a good fit for me, just because of the perceived lack of discipline. But no, I'm extremely happy here at Rackspace, and so don't let the thought of everybody being 8 minutes late to every single meeting and Nerf gun wars throw you off. because it's a small price to pay.
No, I think that you have the tactical advantage in the Nerf gun wars. Being taught tactics at some point. I think that there's some benefit there. I mean, and I'm not going to comment on the 8 minutes late.
Well,
Yeah.
it's
We'll just
it's
leave
an
it at that.
interesting point that you bring up because we share this fine city with USAA, which is another major employer of veterans and has a very different structure and culture, and they're very, very successful as well. But I think a lot of times that ends up being kind of a default direction that people end up going is an organization like USAA that's structured very similarly. And I think the thing that Rackspace has is that cultural values and mission that really makes it a surprisingly ideal fit for the potential, I guess, lax structure. We have structure, but it's all in service of a singular mission and as a singular direction that our entire team works towards, and works really well for many of the veterans that do make Rackspace their career home. So USAA does an excellent job and might be the first default that you would go to, but that doesn't mean that the other options out there wouldn't necessarily fit. So I think the thing that I took away from this conversation is that finding a place with a strong mission and drive towards a team assessment or attainment of that goal is one of those key factors in finding a good fit for your career as you transition out of service.
That's right.
Well, we really appreciate all the time and the expertise that you bring and your service both to the country and to the company. And unless you have something additional to share, I think we've come to the end of our hour. Alan, is there anything else we need to be sure we cover, or guys, do you have any specifics?
Man, I think we hit on so much great stuff. There's a lot of great stuff there, and I think there's probably room to do another one of these in the coming months here, and just kind of get this message out there a little bit more. Yeah, so definitely if you're watching this after the fact, hit us up. A few of us have our Twitter handles on there. I know we check those every once in a while, and you can go ahead and hit us up that way. Or if you run into us out and about, feel free to chat at us about that as well. But yeah, again, just what you said. Thank you all so much for everything in your military service and here at Rackspace as well. And I guess on that note, we'll go ahead and sign off. And remind you that we do this every week at 1 p.m. Central Time every Thursday. And next week we're going to be live from the Future Step Conference in San Francisco. It's a New Relics conference. That'll be great to come and bring some of the information from again the week after that back here back in San Antonio again, and a weekly after that. So again, thanks everybody, and we'll see you all next week. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Cheers, y'all.